I've been away on holiday for the past week, and while I was gone, two pretty important Football Manager 2026 news drops came out. Don't worry if you missed them. I've got you covered. And for those of you who have already seen them, I know you've been on the edge of your seat waiting to hear my thoughts. So here we go. In this video, I'm going to run through everything we've learned about FM26 over the last 7 days. And I'm going to be doing that assuming you've already seen the trailers that Sports Interactive have released. We're not going to be sitting here and re-watching them because I think we've probably all seen them a few times by now. If you've not seen them yet, I will link to them down in the description below. But like I say, I'll be covering off everything important that we could pull out of them in this video anyway. Also, I've got no more travel planned now until after the game releases, so we are going to be back to reacting to all of this stuff as it happens from now on, so make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on. And of course, before we do get into the meat of the video, it wouldn't be a pre-release news video if I didn't remind you that we're now just over a month away from the release of FM26, which means we're only a few weeks away from playing the early access beta. And if you are planning on grabbing the game, make sure you pre-order it through my link, which is down in the description below. You'll get it cheaper than Steam, you'll still get the early access, and you'll be helping support the channel at the same time. It's win-win. But let's get into it. Let's start with last week's news first. That was the official reveal of women's football in FM26. We've known this has been coming for years at this point, but this is the year that it finally actually is happening. And we now have some proper information about how it's going to work. We know that you're going to be able to manage in fully licensed women's leagues with real players, clubs and competitions, including the Women's Super League and the Women's Champions League. There's also a brand new database built just for women's football, so everything from player attributes to tactical styles reflects the women's game specifically. They've also added things like tailored motion capture, body models, and training tweaks to make it feel authentic rather than just dropping female players into the men's database, doing a bit of a name swap and saying, yay, we did it. And most importantly, despite it upsetting all of the women-hating meatheads out here, this is all huge news. It's going to bring a whole new audience to FM, and for long-time players like me, it's basically like having a second version of the game built into the original one that's going to feel significantly different to play compared to the men's version that we've all been used to. You'll be able to add as many or as few women's leagues as you want when you're setting up your game saves. So if you want to pretend it doesn't exist, you are going to be able to do that. If you want a women-only save, you can do that as well, or you'll have the option to do what I, and I'm sure most reasonable people will do, which is to have a mix of men's and women's leagues loaded up in your save so you can move between them, just like if you move from the Premier League to La Liga, for example. There will be women's leagues loaded from the start in this year's Non-League to Legend, which, by the way, is starting on release day, 4th of November at 4 PM UK time. And although we'll be starting with a men's team, Bedford Town in the National League North, there's nothing to stop us ending up at a women's team at some point during the save, or maybe poaching some women's staff members for our men's team, or whatever other integrations between the two that end up appearing. And yes, to confirm, cross-game features like scouting, transfers and youth development are all going to work the same way. So it is fully integrated into the Football Manager world, but there are going to be subtle differences to make the women's game feel more authentic. For example, transfer fees will be smaller, contracts will be shorter, injuries will be different, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it plays, and most importantly, looking forward to a whole new audience feeling represented and more comfortable playing the game for the first time. It's just a bit of a shame that they're introducing all of this in the first version since maybe the 90s that doesn't have international football included out of the box, with that being such an important element of the women's game. But hopefully that's something Sports Interactive will be working on to rectify ASAP. And then we have yesterday's big announcement, which was all about the new Matchday experience. We'd already had bits of this teased to us previously, but they're finally starting to go into some detail on elements of the game we've been keen to find out more about. We already knew that FM26 was getting a complete revamp of how matches look and feel, not just visually, but how the whole thing tells the story of the save. They really are pushing that point quite a lot. But now we are getting some specific examples of what some of the buzzwords that they're pushing actually mean, and amongst those key highlights are the new match engine, which of course we already knew about, but if you have been under a rock, they have rebuilt the match engine completely for it to run on the Unity engine. So animations are smoother, player movement is more natural, and the whole thing looks much closer to real football. And the more I see of this new match engine, the more excited I get, because it does look like a genuine leap forward for the series. And despite some of the old timers, I'm not one of them, the other old people, despite some of the old timers claiming we don't need it, they're happy with 2D, etc., the game had to become more visually appealing if it was going to continue to grow on console and with younger gamers, both of which are crucial to the future of Football Manager. And it looks like this is an area of the game they're definitely getting right on FM26, so big thumbs up for that. We also learned about the new dynamic cameras, more broadcast style angles, smoother transitions, better replays. Basically, the idea is it will feel less and less like dots on a screen and more like you're watching an actual game. And the trailer certainly left me feeling that the days of picking one camera angle on launch day and then never varying from it ever are over. Which has got to help for immersion, it's got to help for visual interest, and also it's going to help for content creation as well. I know this is a bit of a niche want, but you are watching the video, you probably do watch content, and I think these dynamic camera angles are going to make videos much more interesting to watch as well. They also talked about improved sound design, so maybe this is going to be the first time ever I won't just turn the sound off before playing my first match. Maybe. Get your predictions down in the comments for how many games I'll get through before hitting mute, because I just can't imagine I'm going to enjoy having to wear headphones to play Football Manager. We've also got a new match user interface as well, a completely redesigned UI that focuses on telling the story of the match. There's that buzz phrase again, but it's going to cover your momentum swings, your key stats, tactical context is now front and center. They're even including a little 2D pitch that stays on the screen between normal highlights, which I am yet to be convinced about. I'm not sure it would be particularly watchable without massively decreasing your between highlight speed. It's just going to be slinging around all over the place like that. And despite it being a nice idea, I'm not sure I want to spend extra time watching stuff that the game has already decided wasn't important enough to show me at a full highlight. It feels a bit gimmicky, but I guess tactics nerds might like it, and not every feature has to be for everybody. Dynamic highlights, though, they do sound awesome if they actually work. The basic idea with those being the more important or tighter a match is, the more highlights we'll get to increase tension. Whereas if you're 5-0 up at half-time in a meaningless game, you should get fewer highlights. That's going to help massively with immersion in those huge moments like title deciders and cup finals if, and it is a big if, the game is smart enough to know when matches are important or not. I don't want a 20-minute long match when I'm 18 points clear at the top of the league and about to clinch the title with a month to spare just because it's theoretically a title decider. But I do want them to pile on the tension when we're trying to finish 7th on the last day of the season to secure a Conference League spot. So is it going to be smart enough to know that kind of stuff? We'll see, but it is an interesting idea. And we also got some sneaky confirmation, sort of, about one of the most rumoured changes that still hasn't been officially confirmed, and that is the changes to how tactics will work in FM26. It was front and centre in that trailer and on the blog post that all of the tactics had a little IP in brackets after them, and it doesn't take a genius to work out that that means in possession, implying we'll have different team shapes and positions in and out of possession, which has been one of the longest running rumours that's been out there for about a year now, since a load of potential new positions were leaked. Well, it looks like it's happening, and I imagine we'll be finding out about more changes to tactics in FM26 in the very near future. If they take my Gegenpress away, I am switching to FIFA. So we're going to put that out there. And I think the overall main focus, particularly of the blog post, was storytelling. They mentioned it multiple times, and I think that is key here. FM26 wants every match to feel like it's part of a bigger journey, not just 90 minutes that you kind of mindlessly click through, which, if done right, could only be a good thing. he says. I imagine there are a few nerds on Reddit who've already written essays on why that's a bad thing, but that's why they're stuck on Reddit and I'm on YouTube like a cool guy. And that is your very quick summary of everything you've missed if you've been away like me, or if you've just not really been paying attention. Women's football is officially arriving and there's a massive overhaul to match days. They are two pretty big updates in the space of a week. And like I say, we're still a month or so away from release. So there's still plenty we don't know that we'll be finding out pretty soon, I should think, and I will be back on top of the news from this point on. I've got no more holidays booked before FM26 launches. I'm very upset about it. So if you do want to stay up to date, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with your notifications on. And once again, don't forget, if you are planning to pre-order FM26, use the link in the description. Not sure if I've mentioned it before, but it is cheaper than Steam. It still comes with early access and it helps me keep making these videos for you. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you again very soon. Toodle pip.